Hi everybody, this is Joy at Red Pine Quilt Shop. Today we're going to talk about ripping fabric versus cutting fabric. So I want to start by showing you just a regular 44-inch wide bolt of fabric. So this fabric, as it comes off the bolt, is folded in half. So we've got two layers of fabric folded in half, and normally for these regular 44-inch wide goods, we will cut these with a ruler and a rotary cutter here in my shop. Now, occasionally we get a bolt like this in, and we can tell that it is not wound well. It happens just now and then when they're doubling and rolling the bolts in the factories, and we'll have one where the salvages aren't lined up. Sometimes we'll get a bolt in, and when we're looking at it, we've got two salvages and they're kind of doing this, and we know that they're not lined up. We sometimes will see ripples and things in the fabric, and when we see that and we know that we have a bolt that's not wound well, what we will do is to snip in the salvage and rip across it to make sure that we're working with the fabric and we get it on grain when we're cutting for you. Most of them are pretty good though, and they're safe to just go ahead and rotary cut through the two layers. Wide backs though are a completely different story. So wide quilting backs, this is a beautiful wide back from the Secret Garden collection. This is a 108-inch wide back, and as they come off the bolt, they are not just folded in half, they are folded in half and in half again. So if we were going to rotary cut through a wide back like this, we would be cutting through 4 layers of fabric. And as soon as you start to build 4 layers up, and then you think about how that gets wrapped on a bolt, you are going to have more and more issues with it not being on grain as they wrap it, because you have an inside and an outside to that bolt, and the thicker it is what you're wrapping, the more you're going to have the inside pushing ahead of the outside. It's simple geometry. So wide backs are something that we always tear in our shop. There's just no way to cut these and have them be square and on grain. And if you have a wide back that's been cut and you take it to a long armor, as soon as they put that on their quilting frame and they put a little bit of tension on it, they're going to know if it's square or not square. And if it's not square, they're going to have a hard time using it. So when we get a new bolt of wide backs in, and this is a brand new bolt of wide back, it just came in the shop, the first thing that we're going to do is to go ahead and tear this so that we know we are giving you a good piece of fabric when we measure it. So I'm going to take the salvage of the wide back, and I'm going to come over a couple inches and trim with a scissors through the salvage, because I can't really tear through that salvage. That salvage is too tough to tear through, but I'm going to go over a couple inches, and then I'm going to start to rip, and I'm going to see if I can make it across the fabric, and I'm going to show you what's happening here. So look at what I started out with. I cut in about 2 inches, and look at where I'm ripping. My rip is now down to half that. Now when I'm ripping, that rip is going to follow a straight line in the grain of the fabric. So anytime you tear across a piece of fabric, that will be on grain. It's going to follow a thread. So we'll keep going. We'll see if I can make it across. It's getting a little wider again. We're going to make it across, so that's good. But if you look at the varying widths, this was the one salvage, this was the salvage where I started, and then in the middle we were down to even a lot less fabric. So look at all the different widths. Now if we had just cut that, you would have had all those crooked edges on your fabric. I have times where I've taken and I've ripped I've snipped in about 2 or 3 inches, and I've ripped and I've not made it across, and I've had to snip in a couple inches again and try again. There's times when we've had wide backs that have been as much as 6 inches different between the two salvages. So it's definitely smart to rip these. So when you rip a wide back, you are going to have some frayed edges. You're going to have a little bit of a thread that's going to pull in. That will happen. So we do rip these because we want to make sure that you get a good piece of fabric, and we're going to look at how much that is pulling in, and we will give you extra fabric. So if you order 2 yards of this, which is 72 inches, because it's pulling in about an inch, we're going to just not count an inch on the one side and not count an inch on the other side, and you'll get probably about 74 inches when you order it. So don't worry about the fact that you're seeing a little bit of fraying and a little bit of thread pulling back. We compensate for that when we measure. So for this, I would look at it and say, well, I'm not going to count that first inch. If you would order 2 yards, I would measure out 72 inches. I would go over another inch, and that's where I would snip and do the next rip, because then we know that you're getting a good piece of backing fabric and you're getting a square piece of backing fabric. So that is why we rip wide backs. The other thing that we always rip in my shop is wool fabric. We buy wool fabric on the bolt, and we felt it and sell felted wool fabric. Because of how thick that is, again, we have a huge issue with the difference between the inside and the outside of the bolt, and that inside always starts pushing ahead. And so wool fabric, again, is one more thing that we always rip here in the shop to make sure that you're getting a square piece of it, or if we're going to felt it and sell it as felted wool, that it's going to be a square piece as well. So wide backs and wool are always ripped here, and I hope this little demo kind of showed you why we do that and why it's important to do that. So thanks for joining us today.